Hello and welcome back to Dr. Logic Awkwardly Does Logic in Her Kitchen. In our previous video, we talked about constructing a logical language that you can then translate from English into that language. In this video, I'm going to talk a bit about the ways in which you can represent the logical side of the sentences you'll be translating as opposed to the non-logical, which is, the kind of substantive part of the language itself. Now, the way that predicate logic sentences are generally constructed doesn't necessarily correspond with the way that we normally talk in English. For instance, if I say for all x px, that would be equivalent in English to saying something like everything is p. But we very rarely go around making general universal statements like that. Or if I say exists x qx, this would be equivalent in English to saying something is Q, or there is a Q, or there exists a Q. But we don't just make bare universal statements or general existence statements. Most of the time, what we want to do is we want to either say something of a particular object. For instance, Goldie is a cat, so Goldie would be a constant, cat would be a predicate, and I could predicate that predicate of that object. Or I want to say general things about objects linking properties that they have. For instance, I don't want to say that everything is a fruit, but I do want to say that every pear is a fruit. So what I'm doing is essentially restricting the scope of my quantification so that I'm only talking about pears. Similarly, I don't necessarily just want to say there's an apple. That's not a very interesting sentence, but I might want to say, there's an apple on the table. So this is something to kind of keep in mind, that English sentences are always going to involve either a specific object picked out by a constant or a function and something that's being predicated or related to it, or it's going to be making kind of broader statements about things, either in general or in specific, that have particular combinations of predicates or are related to each other in particular ways. For instance, maybe I also want to say that there are three objects, one of which is between the other two. Or maybe I want to say there are three apples, one of which is between the other two. Or maybe I want to say there's a pear that is between two apples. So these are the sorts of slightly more complex things that we ordinarily say in English, which will actually have a slightly more, naturally, complex representation in the logical side of our translations. So I just wanted to give a video to kind of flag this up. So this is things to think about when representing the logical structure. You might say, on one hand, be talking first about things that are both leaves and green, so green leaves, and then maybe in another part of the sentence or in another part of the text, talk about leaves that are brown. So again, things that are both leaf and brown, rather than just brown things or leaves. We don't generally talk about just, ooh, look, there's a leaf. All things are purple. This is just not the way that we speak. So paying attention to that will make it more straightforward when you're actually trying to identify what the logical structure of a particular English sentence is when you're translating it into the language that you developed according to the sorts of guidance I gave in the previous video. Now that we have that, we can start looking at examples. So join me next time. See you then. Cheers.